stand up.
From a defabricated garden shed in Rockland County, New York, USA, this is Stand Up with Pete Dominick. On today's episode, the complexities and contradictory nature of COVID-19 guidance and problems with individual interpretation, and also puberty. And now, the podcast host whose new band, Perpetual Puberty, is no doubt playing at a high school gym near you, Pete Dominick.
Thank you again, Pete Co., for opening the show awkwardly as hell and putting me in an impossible improvisational situation. But yeah, I guess Perpetual Puberty is going to be continuing to tour at high schools, and basically it's not only a band. I do a motivational speech about how I went through puberty very late and lost my hair early, and how that was a tough challenge to have such a brief full body hair window. And I think a lot of the young men especially, they tell me privately, hey man, I feel seen. And so, yeah, in many ways, it's like a public service, so I'm pretty proud of it. Hello, my friends. I've got two amazing guests for you today. Bill B. in D.C. joins me to talk about giving a preview and analysis of the importance of the January 6th hearings. And that, by the way, we'll do a live watch party instead of a hangout. Thursday night, that's going to be the same time as our hangout, and I definitely want to watch that. I know many of you want to watch it. We'll have a live chat going, a little commentary. Maybe we'll invite some special guests to join us. Should be fun. So join us. Sign up now if you're not already a paid subscriber for as little as $5. Come on, what are you waiting for? StandUpWithPete.com. So Bill B. and I talk about that, as well as the latest on Russia's invasion in Ukraine. But coming up first, a very special conversation with a really impressive writer whose new book, he's a New York Times bestseller, but his new book is a memoir, and it is so good. Black Boy Smile is what it's called. D. Watkins joins me for the very first time, and I gotta say, this is one of the probably best conversations I've had on the podcast. It really is. I mean, I am so happy to get the opportunity to talk with D. Watkins for the first time, and so excited to know I'll be talking to him again, because we really hit it off. He also, by the way, is a protege of David Simon of The Wire, and now this new HBO series, We Own This City, which I started watching as a result of interviewing him, and it's really, really good. He wrote episode 3, if you've not watched the show, but the show that takes place, again, in Baltimore, as David Simon's The Wire did. We Own This City is so good, and so D. Watkins wrote episode 3 of that. He's written this new memoir, and we had such a great conversation, which I think you are really going to enjoy. But first, I just want to play a few clips from yesterday, mostly about new gun laws and the momentum that the horrific nightmare shooting of children in Uvalde, Texas elementary school has created on this issue. Renewed momentum, and you're really starting to believe that something might happen in the Senate. It looks like even Texas's John Cornyn might sign on to something. We will see. But first, I just want to play for you these young people who went to D.C. and created a protest action there. They took place wearing bulletproof vests outside the Capitol. At Students Demand is the Twitter handle for this national organization. Students Demand action again to end gun violence in America. Here they are chanting, "Senators, please act. Don't look away. Don't look away. Don't look away." Why am I doing it? Let them do it.
Senators, please act. Don't look away. Don't look away. Don't look away. Guns are the leading cause of death for kids in West Virginia, Missouri, and North Carolina.
Wow, guns are the leading cause of death for children in West Virginia, Missouri, and what'd you say, North Carolina?
And North Carolina.
Wow, yeah, North Carolina. So we also heard from several senators there. First, here's Cory Booker on a windy microphone with a list of demands.
Well, today we demand change. We demand progress. We demand background checks that are comprehensive. We demand a ban on assault-style military weapons. We demand red flag laws. We demand gun licensing. We demand us living up to our creed as a country. That we are a nation nation that believes in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
All right, there's Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey. Here's now a less passionate Richard Blumenthal, senator from Connecticut, the less passionate senator as well from Connecticut. But I like this guy, Richard Blumenthal. I think he's got a handsome face, and I'm glad he showed up. I'm always glad he says these things.
Senator Murphy and I'm about to introduce him, have been working on a bipartisan measure. It won't go as far as we like. I still have very open minds about what we will be able to do, very clear-eyed about what is possible.
And now here is the much more passionate, articulate, I would argue, Senator Chris Murphy. He has been the leading senator for gun control or anti-gun violence regulations and new laws. Here he is at the Students Demand rally yesterday on Capitol Hill.
It's hard enough being a kid in the middle of the pandemic, in the age of social media. Now, on top of all of that, you have to worry about whether you're going to make it home from school safe, right? My fourth grader had to have a conversation with his friends the day after Uvalde. What would happen if a shooter came into their classroom? Where would they run? Where would they hide? We don't accept that in America, do we? No. We don't accept that as the new normal. We don't accept that as a rite of passage for American kids, because no other children in the world have to think about that when they walk into their school other than in this country. We will not accept it here in the United States of America. We will not stop working. We will not stop fighting until every community, every neighborhood, every school in this country is a safe place.
Don't look away! Don't look away! Don't look away!
All right, there you go. That's from the rally. And CNN's Manu Raja caught up with West Virginia senator and man who once made a campaign ad shooting the climate bill, Senator Joe Manchin, who sounds somewhat reasonable on what he might do on some bipartisan gun violence control laws.
We can do something that would have prevented this, raising the age, making sure that the age at least gives us a chance to work with that person, see and evaluate and have a little maturity to them. And the second thing is that we know that the red flag laws do work as long as there's due process.
So you think raising the age from 18 to 21 for all gun purchases?
Well, it's where it is, everything except for rifles and long guns right now, or if it's just for these high capacity weapons. Whatever they want to do, I'm open to doing something that makes sense.
Why do you think people even need an AR-15? Do people need one?
I mean, you have to ask the people that do. I never thought I had a need for that type of a high capacity automatic weapon. And I like to shoot. I like to go out and hunt. I like to go out sports shooting. I do all of that. But I've never felt I needed something of that magnitude.
And finally, I always like to tell you that I hate when people say after these horrific shootings that nothing ever happens. Well, the U.S. Congress might not be able to pass legislation, even though Democrats have supported it for years, including Democratic presidents like Barack Obama as well as Democratic-led House. But it was the Senate that always prevented anything from being done. And maybe we'll see a change. But it is states that are making changes and have been making changes for years, including states like Connecticut and my state of New York, which yesterday the governor of New York signed a 10-bill package intended to strengthen the state's gun laws and protect people from gun violence by prohibiting the sale of semi-automatic weapons to those under 21 and banning most body armor sales for civilians. The bill's CBS News writes comes after a rash of mass shootings, including a racially motivated shooting that killed 10 in a Buffalo, New York supermarket, and put increased pressure on politicians to consider bipartisan gun reform. Here is the governor of New York, my governor, Kathy Hochul.
Shots ring out, flags come down, and nothing ever changes. Except here in New York. In New York, we are taking bold, strong action. We're tightening the red flag laws to keep guns away from dangerous people. And we're raising the age of semi-automatic weapons so no 18-year-old can walk in on their birthday and walk out with an AR-15. Those days are over. Those days are over. You hear that? Those days are over.
We hear it. Kathy Hochul, Governor Hochul, delivering to New Yorkers to try to keep us just a little bit safer from ourselves. I love it. See, change does happen. Credit to all the activists, Moms Demand, Students Demand, and so much more around the state for pressuring New York politicians getting it done, and credit to the governor, Kathy Hochul, for getting it done as well. Also, homeowners in New York, we just got a check for $1,200 from the governor. How about that? It says Governor Hochul and the New York State Legislature are providing you this homeowner tax rebate check that you can use to help pay your property taxes. This is in addition to the school tax relief benefits you will receive later this year. These programs reduce the cost of homeownership for New Yorkers. How about that? And it was almost $1,100. That's right. Thank you very much, Governor Hochul. We will take that handout. Handout. Nonsense. All right, now I want to play for you on a different subject. Here is CNN's Jake Tapper talking to political analyst Harry Enton on CNN yesterday, predicting a major, major win for Republicans 5 months away in November. Now, I know it's 5 months away. I wouldn't be talking about this certainly every day. I don't think anybody should, but I'll give you periodical updates because I want people to get involved with their congressional elections. But here it is from yesterday's CNN's The Lead, 3 minutes of analysis.
Topping our politics lead, a little more than 5 months remain before American voters head to the polls for the critical midterm elections. It is looking less and less likely that Democrats will be able to keep control of the House of Representatives, where Democrats currently only hold a 12-seat majority. CNN senior data reporter Harry Enton joins us live. Harry, if you're a Republican running for re-election or trying to unseat a Democrat, things are looking pretty good, right?
I would say they're looking very good from a historical context. So basically, I took the best Republican positions on the generic congressional ballot at this point in midterm cycles since 1938. That generic ballot basically is, would you vote for the generic Republican or generic Democrat in your district? And guess what? Since 1938, the Republican 2-point lead on the generic congressional ballot is the best position for Republicans at this point in any midterm cycle in over 80 years. It beats 2010 when Republicans were up a point. It beats 2014, 2002, 1998, where Democrats led by a point. And in all of those 4 prior examples that make this list of the top 5, look at that. Who won a majority? It was the Republicans who won a majority. Now, of course, the election is not being held tomorrow, and we'll see. Sometimes history isn't always prologue. But my estimate for the 2023 House makeup, if the election were held today, which again, it isn't, we still have 5 months from tomorrow, would be Republicans 236 seats to 241 seats, Democrats 194 to 199. That's based off of a formula of seat-to-seat race ratings from both the Cook Political Report and Inside Elections.
That is a stomping, or that would be a stomping.
Yes, it would.
We'll see if it happens. A lot of the Democrats' problems, it seems, can be linked back to the president, right, who is severely underwater.
Yeah, midterm penalty, it's about where the president is. And essentially, okay, look at the president's approval rating at this point since World War II in midterms in which his party gains or loses less than 5 House seats, which is essentially what Democrats need to maintain control. In 1962, the president's approval rating, JFK's, was 71%. Bill Clinton in 1998, it was 63%. In the 2002 cycle, 72% for George W. Bush. Joe Biden's is just 41%. Why is his approval rating so low? Well, I think this slide will give you the answer. This is the net approval rating on the economy at this point in a presidency. Joe Biden's minus 26 points. That is the lowest, tied for lowest for any president in the last 40 plus years.
All right, not only do I not like the information that is being delivered, which I think is pretty accurate, but I don't like that guy's voice, Harry Enton. I'm sure he's a great guy, but I didn't like the delivery there. It bothered me. Maybe it was because it was the news he was delivering sounded so terrifying, but I don't know. I just didn't love it. Bothered me. I'm just saying. I'm sorry, Harry. I'm so sorry. Do the show anytime, but maybe a different delivery. I don't know. Okay, sorry, I'm being a dick. Now, moving on to something different. I mean, get involved in your local congressional races. It matters so much. Get your friends out to vote for Democrats, or we will definitely have Republican investigations into just about everything being in every single committee hearing. But we will also be very then concerned about the outcome of the 2024 presidential election. Will Republicans vote to confirm the election results if they are in charge of the House? So many analysts I respect say, why would you possibly think that? So much at stake. But I don't want to scare you. I just want to jolt you into action, however possible, to get involved with your local congressional races. They all matter so much. Okay, 2 more clips I want to share with you. First, yesterday I played that MMA fighter, UFC's Jeff Molina, who was facing a backlash for wearing rainbow shorts in support of Pride Month. Well, he was interviewed on some podcast, and I just want to give you a little bit more from this guy. I just love this guy. I'm becoming a fan. Here's 2 minutes of him speaking plainly and clearly about why this matters, and he wish it didn't.
I feel like I'm being appreciated for something I shouldn't be appreciated for, if that makes sense.
I get it.
And I'm not trying to backtrack on anything I said. I spoke 100% from the heart. I meant exactly what I said, but it's like being applauded for saying like murder is wrong. You know, it's like this should just be common. Like rape is wrong. Racism is wrong. You know, being hateful towards someone for who they love is wrong. And who the fuck cares, man, at the end of the day? And that's the only thing that makes me feel weird about this whole situation. And at first, like I wasn't retweeting any of those, the people that would retweet the video, just cause like, I understand that it's a community that's been marginalized and oppressed. And that's why I said what I said. But at the same time, it's like, I know I have a platform as a fighter fighting for the UFC, for the biggest organization in the world. But at the same time, it's I feel weird being appreciated for something that should just be fucking like just common decency, just being a human being, just not hating someone else for something they can't control. And that's why I said what I said. And yeah, I was surprised by it turning into like almost a small viral video that went around Twitter and Instagram. But that's the only weird feeling I have from it is just the feeling of being appreciated for being a fucking decent human is almost bothersome, if that makes sense. But
yeah, it makes a lot of sense. You make a lot of sense, Jeff Molina. Outside the fact that you have chosen to have your head beaten in for a living, you make a ton of sense about gay rights and where we should be in 2022. All right, finally, yesterday was the big Apple event, WWDC 22, and they introduced all kinds of new products. But I want to play something just because I think it's interesting about the development, the changes that are definitely going to affect all of our lives. Those of us use Apple iMessage for texting. That's probably over 80% of us. Maybe it's not that high, actually. Maybe it's only 50%. What the hell do I know? I should put out a poll for listeners. But I just thought this was interesting where the Apple guy, who I'm not even going to go bother to look up his name, introduced the new changes.
And now we're adding 3 of the most highly requested features to messages. First, have you ever sent a message only to immediately realize you didn't quite say what you intended?
Yeah, like probably 75% of the time. 75% of my messages probably are that. So what are you going to do about it?
Well, no worries, because now you can edit any message you just sent.
Yes! Oh, man, have I almost gotten canceled over messages I voice texted to young female producers that absolutely did not say what I wanted them to say. Like, hey, are we taping a show tomorrow? And instead, what it texted was, hey, are we taking a shower tomorrow? Oh, my God. Yeah, that actually happened one time.
So embarrassing typos can be a thing of the past. Second, have you ever wished you'd never sent that message at all?
Like fucking daily, Apple executive, bro.
Well, good news. Now you have undo send, so you can immediately recall a recent misfire. And finally, you can now mark any thread as unread, a perfect tool if you don't have time to respond in the moment and want to be sure to come back to a message later.
Oh my God. A recent misfire? Do they they must have like the best writers and communicators at Apple as well. Do you think they argued over that term? A recent misfire. That's real. That one really threw me. Okay, well, I thought that was exciting and fun to narrate. So hopefully you appreciated that new information that's absolutely going to change our lives. I mean, that's the kind of clip that I'm happy to share with you here at the top of the show. Worth spending a couple of hours putting together the opening tonight. All right. Yeah, because like one guy yesterday messaged me and told me he really missed the news segment, and it kind of crushed me for a couple hours, and I just kept thinking about that message. Yeah, Christopher Winfrey. He's like, I understand why you cut out the last 24 news dump, but those are my favorite parts of the show, and I'm very disappointed you won't be doing them anymore. Christopher, I'm sorry. He wrote, I thought some of the clips you put together were very important to help people keep up with the details and news that gets overlooked, and I really wish you would incorporate it in some fashion. Well, hopefully, Christopher, you appreciated that I did it in this fashion, where it's kind of like important good news. It's kind of evergreen. It's going to matter to your life in tomorrow's episode as well as today's. And so hopefully that makes a difference. And thank you very, very much for the rest of what you said, too. He said, doing every day is definitely a tall task and a strain on mental health. So, again, I think reevaluation is great. I just think you have such a great knack for putting together maybe some of the type of weekly or bi-weekly news dump roundup could be a possibility. Just my thoughts. Thanks for everything you do. Christopher, I really appreciate your nuanced, thoughtful message. It really made me think a lot, and the mind keeps cranking on what I do with this opening segment, and I'll just keep experimenting until I settle on something that I feel comfortable with in terms of what works for my schedule, my lifestyle, and I think matters to you. I want the show to be something where every day we learn new things about how to live better lives with less suffering and be involved and have purpose, connect with new people, and find happiness. I just made that up off the top of my head, but that's what I want this to be each and every day as you stop in. So let's do it, shall we? Here we go. Okay, my first guest is probably one of the best conversations I've had on the podcast. I gotta say, really, really is. This guy has had a fascinating life, and he's written all about it now in several books, but he's now an editor-at-large at Salon. He's an award-winning professor at the University of Baltimore. He's got a master's in education from Johns Hopkins, an MFA in creative writing from University of Baltimore, where, like I said, now he's a professor. He's won a whole bunch of awards for writing and for speaking. He's from Baltimore, where he now lives with his wife and daughter. New York Times bestselling, award-winning author of The B-Side, The Cook-Up, Where Tomorrows Aren't Promised, and We Speak for Ourselves, which was a One Book, One Baltimore selection, featured in the HBO documentary The Slow Hustle, and a writer on We Own the City, which I just started watching. So good. The new David Simon HBO miniseries. Oh man, I can't recommend that show higher. We talked about, though, his new book. It's Black Boy Smile, a memoir in moments, which, when I tell you I read the whole thing and I couldn't put it down in 2 days, not even in a few hours, I'm telling you that's exactly what I did. Like I said, this is a special conversation for a lot of reasons, which I'll allow you to surmise. But go follow D. Watkins at D. Watkins World on Twitter and let him know that you enjoyed this conversation, which starts right now. D. Watkins on the show, first time. I've really fallen for you, sir. I just tweeted my love for you publicly. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
This new book is so special and so thoughtful, and I really cannot put it down. I love memoirs, but Black Boy Smile is something special, and I just want to say congratulations for putting it out there. Really wonderful.
Thank you.
Why this memoir now, given your earlier work?
I was extremely frustrated with the publishing industry, but I felt like my personal story of my American experience just wasn't in literature, right? And I just felt like I don't, I'm not like a narcissist or a person who wants to talk about themselves all of the time. But I know as I've been to schools and I've been to jails and I've been to all of these different places talking to all of these different people about that 80s baby, 90s baby experience growing up in the crack era, people started to think that I was Teflon, like I'm this tough guy who never cries or eats cookies. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, no, that's not the case. I experience fear and hurt and pain just like you, and I don't talk about it enough, just like many of you. And I'm gonna offered up some of my most vulnerable situations and experiences to show that I hurt too. And if we talk about it, we can potentially move past it.
Oh, so well said. I'm trying to find this page where I have highlighted this specific line. You're in the car with your dad going to camp. Here it is. I was raised in an environment. You mind if I read your words? Sorry.
No, absolutely.
I was raised in an environment where fear was lied about, even if you were 9 years old. I'd never been away from my family or even outside of Baltimore. So any other place, my fear could have been natural, but it wasn't for me. The people I respected taught me that fear was the worst thing a man could be. And I underlined that last sentence, and I was hoping you would talk more about the people you respected and what they taught you and why they taught you, do you think, about that emotion?
One of the strongest memories I have, and my dad's still alive, but from my dad and my Uncle Angelo, rest in peace, and, my big cousins and everybody in the family was don't cry. Don't cry was like the main thing. Don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. And then, you're called bad names. You're picked at. You can't come off the steps. Nobody wants you anywhere. So even in times, like I remember breaking my leg on a football field and biting my lip until it almost like I felt like it was going to bleed, trying to hold back my tears, even though I had like a piece of bone popping out the side of my leg. I am holding it until I'm shaking because I don't want anyone to see me, So I start cursing like F, F, S, S, F. Can you cuss on this? I don't.
Yeah, please.
Oh yeah, cool. So I'm like I'm like a little 10-year-old bitch, fuck, shit, motherfucker, just to try to not, to hold them until I got into the back of the ambo, and then I let it out. But yeah, I was taught that it was like if you cry, you were just like, you were more accepted if you shit it in your hands and smeared it across your face than if some tears came out when you were feeling pain. I don't know how that's going to sound on a playback, but that's just like, do you want to have a shit face boy or cry boy? I'll choose shit face boy is what they would take.
I mean, it's hard for me to imagine that scenario you just created. I just know that I want to cry upon your description of it. If you smear shit in my face, I am crying about that for sure. I think that might have happened to me. So the names that you get called, if you show, now I'm kind of assuming this is what it is, show weakness. That's, what crying is about. The names that you get called, they are kind of emasculating, I imagine, which perpetuates the problem that you write about with toxic masculinity, and also creates a problem for people who naturally aren't that masculine, men who aren't, quote, masculine, or it doesn't mean they're gay or even confused. They're just not traditionally masculine. What are those names? Am I onto something?
Yeah, and I think, we live in a time now where people are more comfortable with sexuality and talking about it. But when I was growing up, if a kid was gay and, and he or she already knew what their reality was, they couldn't feel comfortable being themselves because the joke was something that was explicit towards what they believe in, right? But they would call you the F word. They would call you a bitch. They would call you all of these different things, and you would protest like, I'm not that, as if that reality is something that don't exist, or as if being, not aligning with whatever the dominant culture perceives as normal is like the worst thing in the world. So and it hurts. Like it really, really hurts when people you respect are just tearing you apart. And then you become, and instead of you understanding how it hurt you, you in turn absorb that and you become a little oppressor. So you say, you know what? I'm getting picked on by this group. So let me go pick on the next group so I can establish that dominance and be, the kind of leader that the person who's causing the pain, not the one who has to eat all of it.
I just want to say one thing. When you said at the very beginning of our conversation about, I'm not a narcissist. I didn't want to write a memoir if, I didn't want to write this kind of thing and make it about me. But I got to say, I really think that this book, especially in your work right now, and just in you talking to me, our age, you're 40, you don't mind me saying.
Oh, yeah, 42.
You're 42 and I'm 46. And regardless of the insanely different paths we might have taken in life, we both can relate to the fact that there is still time for us to be better men. There is still time for us to find joy, to fight our anxieties, to sleep better, to be healthier, to be in less pain, to have less suffering. And I believe the people of our generation, and we're going to talk about black men of our generation, with your work and what your book, you're giving them an opportunity to realize what you have realized, to have less suffering. Don't you think that's amazing and important?
No, I think it's extremely important. And you're the first person to put it like that. I was going to say the purpose of the book was to people looking for a husband, wait until he's like 42. you can save like a lot of pain.
No, but
I like what you said better.
It's not. But even I gotta point out the flaw in the comedy, because that's not true. If you haven't found a way to go on the journey that you've gone on, that I've gone on, for sure. But your journey, like everything that you learned, the way that you talk, everything you're writing about in the book gives other people who had similar experiences, and there are so many, you grew up with them, permission to feel their feelings, to explore, to be, because you are a real hard guy growing up. You're a hard kid. I don't want to give away what you did. You did a thing to a bully that was so horrible that you put him in the hospital. I mean, and that's just the start of it. You've written about this in your other books. So for you to have lived that life, and I'll shut up, but to then write about this and be who you are, man, that it gives so many other people our age permission to have so much time ahead of themselves.
You're right. And jokes aside, I really, really, really believe that people don't deserve to suffer. And part of our suffering is coming from us trying to live up to things that are just not real. And when we had a brief conversation before you started recording, but I should say this because you brought it up. I wrote about that incident with that bully twice. I wrote about it in my first book, The Cook Up, that came out in 2016. And I wrote about it again in this book because I see it through a different lens. At the time I wrote about it, it was like an honor thing. Like, you know what? I did something, right? I did something. But looking back, so and this is like for viewers who struggle with this, at 35, 36 years old, maybe I was 34, 35 when I actually wrote the book, even though it came out when I was like 36. I still saw that moment as it deserved to be done. That's what had to be done. Look at me, look at me, look at me. And now at 41, when as I was writing this, I'm like, I didn't feel better. I didn't feel better. It did not make me feel better. Hitting the person that bullied me, that made me feel horrible, that made me feel terrible, that made me want to hide in the house and not come outside. Under American rules, that is a hero story. That is a traditional hero story. We attack the bad guy. I'm Rambo. I'm Commando. I'm Action Jackson. And you do it, right? You do it. And then you just feel like whatever, and he beat me up more times and we fought again. And then we established like a weird friendship dynamic and like whatever. But I never felt better. And if I had the heart to be able to say, you hurt my feelings. You hurt my feelings when you spit on my friend. You hurt my feelings when you beat me up. You hurt my feel. Like these things hurt. And I don't want to feel this way. And I don't want you to feel like you're a bigger or a better person because of what you're doing, because you're not. And let's figure this out. I didn't have the language, the words, or the insight, or the understanding to do that. I just knew kill, kill, kill.
Yeah, I think it's profound. The way you write about it even better than you just articulated it here in terms of that feeling as to you didn't feel better. I can't even.
You don't feel better.
Some people might, they think they do.
And I'm not even trying to demonize them, but what I will say is that bullies are victims too. Bullies are victims too. And we don't say that enough because they get a chance to control the pain they dole out. But what is inside of them, or what has poisoned them to think that it's okay? And how do we unpack that? When we have these conversations, we talk about the bullied, but we don't talk about the people who actually do it. And these people need to be included in this conversation. I know some bullies are confronted with how they harm people, and it causes, and then they get a chance to change. I've seen that happen in life. Why that isn't magnified, I don't know, but maybe it's something that we should be talking about.
Well, I think what you're saying is and I didn't mean to push back, what you're saying is people can draw different conclusions from their experiences. And frankly, you actually, your conclusion evolved as you matured and is different now about how you feel about that moment. You also write one point in the book during your story about going to camp, which, again, we're the same age. The black camp that you went to and the white camp that I went to are in different decades, in different cultures. The counselors are different. The rules are different. The purpose and certainly a lot of the experiences. And yet there are similarities as well. You write in that chapter about playing a prank on a kid. The kid gets in trouble. Again, I don't want to give it away. You're so great at writing about it. And you felt horrible because you say, I'm not a bully. I thought we were just playing a joke. And I thought that also is emblematic of your self-awareness at the time, much less looking back at it now. What else can you say about that, about camp or that moment?
I was sick because something that was goofy and fun had led to a kid getting the shit beat out of him. Mm-hmm. And I played a part in that. Unknowingly. I didn't know that's what the result would be, but this counselor he had a mission of making us hyper resilient. And I think maybe it had something to do with two things. One, however he was raised. And then two, maybe he knew the world that we were going back to. Maybe he knew how we were going to be perceived as we got older, because I never really, I never took a deep dive in this book. I had to capture it from my emotions and how I felt at that time. So I didn't have the luxury of reflecting on his perspective and where he was coming from. But a lot of us, we do what we see. I didn't know any authors. I didn't know any television writers. I didn't know any college professors. I never saw any of that when I grew up, but I saw people selling drugs. So I did what they did because that was in front of me every day. Maybe every once in a while, a positive person would come to the neighborhood, to the school or something and tell us, hey, little kids, don't smoke crack and don't give up. And I'm like, dog, I'm 6, and then you never see them again. But the people who are actually smoking crack and selling it are in your house, out front of your house, at the school every day. So we see this every day, and it becomes it's a part of reality, and we do what we see. And that counselor probably did what he saw. And that kid, wherever that kid is at in life, I don't know where he's at, but I hope he's good, man. I hope he's okay.
I know one thing. He hates mustard.
Yo, he hates mustard. Yo, he doesn't fuck with mustard at all. He doesn't fuck with mustard at all. I don't blame him, man. They poured a number on him.
All right. Well, you can use your imagination and more importantly, go buy the book to find out more about that situation that happened. What a journey you've had in your life and your career as well. Talk to me a little bit. I mean, this book, Black Boy Smile, A Memoir in Moments, that everybody has to get, is so good. But I got to say, and I haven't said this in a while, it's too short. You must have left out a lot of stuff. Will you write more?
So it's funny. I wish I could patch my editor in and you can help me throw wild curse words in her direction, because the book was actually, it was 80,000 words. 80,000 words. It was a nice thick book. And they convinced me to cut it. They convinced me to cut it.
They're 100% wrong for the reasons I'm stating earlier. This is a book that gives black men and men, for sure men, because white men too, there's a lot of masculinity stuff in here, permission to do things differently. And I'll just say it on the record. I would love to see this be a huge part of your career moving forward as a role model for men our age, for black men our age, because you have figured a lot of shit out, and that means you're clearly going to figure more out. And you have a daughter, and I think it's just, sorry, I'm talking again, but
no, she makes me. She's like, we had this weird moment yesterday. So I buy her.
How old is she now?
She's 2.5, and she loves these little Charles Barkley sneakers and these little Nike, these little Air Jordans and shit. She loves them, right? So I went to the sneaker store that was shutting down, and they lost their Nike contract. So they had all of the kid Jordans from the 90s and in the basement. So I and they were $30. So I loaded up for her, and her mom told me to buy her a pair of Crocs. So, you know, she's like, the kids like Crocs. The kids like Crocs.
Sure.
And I'm like, all right, cool. I'll get her a pair of Crocs. And she slept with them. She carried them around all morning. She had them on next to her in the chair at breakfast. And I realized she's never going to wear the Nikes I bought her ever again. She will wear Crocs. She will look like a little miniature assistant nurse for maybe the rest of her childhood. Like, she's addicted to Crocs.
Well,
she's
I've got a rough confession to make, and I don't know if it's going to change anything.
She went from being my twin to your twin.
I'm holding up my Crocs. That's a great story, and it's also a parenting story. It's like you want to give your kids things that you like and see if they'll like them, but you realize quickly your kid is a whole different person than you are, especially oftentimes when it comes to gender. And I had a similar experience that you did. I think mine was even harsher, though, when you found out your wife is pregnant and you imagined having a boy. I think that's pretty normal. I imagined my wife was going to have a boy. And then I found out she was going to have a girl, and I was devastated. And what I like to say, and I got to always put it in there, is after I had a girl, and she got pregnant again, the opposite was true. I was so excited for a girl. But kind of unpack that experience for you. You weren't devastated. It seems like you pivoted quickly when you found out you were going to be a girl dad, I like to say. I like that. Do you think that's cheesy? Girl dad? I like it.
The reason why is because, so for starters, my wife, Karan wanted a boy. She wanted to be the mom who cussed out the coach and the referee at basketball games. She only wanted a son so she can yell at a coach, like with like a cap on and maybe Crocs. And she wanted to be on the sideline yelling at coaches, but she always thought that she would raise a boy. And initially, I didn't think about it as much because, it was the idea of her having a baby was just like a scary thing because we had just created this moment where we developed this language of communicating with each other. We developed this connection, and we were traveling and moving around, and she had came on book tour with me, and we were having so much fun. And I'm like, wow, well, what is a kid going to do to this dynamic, and what is going to, like, how are we going to be able to figure this out? It's just like a scary thing. And when we started talking about it, in the connection and how I was going to connect us more, I became more at ease. Now, and this is going to sound really messed up, but the main reason I was happy to have a daughter is because I didn't know how I was going to nurture a son. I didn't know. I'm still asking myself these tough questions. Your daughter you can have whatever you want. I will literally let my daughter brush her teeth with ice cream forever. And if her teeth fall out, I'll go get her veneers. But like a son, we're sending him out into the world, and I know I wouldn't baby him like I do my wife and my daughter. And I know it sounds messed up, and I know I would figure it out if it happened, but I just didn't really understand how I would do it at that particular point.
Well, you write about the different outcomes for black boys and black girls too, and having that be a real honest concern for any black parent in America. If I have a boy, and I've heard this oftentimes from black folks, if I have a boy, I have to worry about all these things. If I have a girl, I have to worry about all these things. You're talking more about how you relate and what role you play, but you also talk about those concerns, which I think is uniquely sad.
Yeah, and I didn't, and again, like I don't try to play expert. Like I didn't know how I was going to approach that situation, and then It started aligning because we bought this house, and when we roll up in the crib, and there's already like a blue room. So I'm like, yo, this is actually maybe this is like Met, and it's like, no, you'll be paying the guy whatever $600 or whatever people charge to paint the room and change all of these different things and buy this. I'm in the paint store, and they're saying they have special paints for babies' rooms that like. It's only like $1 million extra per gallon, but you have to get it or your kid is going to be the one eating paste. So I'm like, no, I don't want my kid to eat paste. So, so we figured it out, and I'm just so happy that she's here. She's, and the scary part about it is, so I was taking her to school the other day, and this woman said, oh, her name's Cross, right? And she's like, oh, great. Cross is here. Cross is here. We're all going to be entertained now. Everybody's going to have a good day. And I felt terrible because I spent so much of my life being an entertainer and trying to make people have a good day, even when I felt horrible. And then my dad was an entertainer, and he would be going through hell, but he's breaking his neck to make people laugh and have a good time. And it's kind of like it's a happy, but it's all, and I'm sure you probably go through this as a comedian, is people expect you to be funny. Like, even if you're having a bad day, if they know you as a comedian, oh, here comes Pete. I just got diagnosed with some rare incurable disease. Come on, Pete, fix it. And you'd have to, say something funny and inspiring and interesting. And if you don't, then like their experience with you was terrible.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think of the joke, and I think I'd say, well, at least you don't look like you got diagnosed with a terrible disease as I do. That was a rough one, though. You put me in a rough improv, but I think I got my way out. Yeah, no, and that's true, and that's a really interesting thing to have to think about when they're like kind of classifying your child as of this. But the fact that you are thinking about that, let me put on my elder father hat, means you're such a great dad. You're just, you're thinking about how every comment, how every experience, you also illustrate that in the book with all of your choices as a dad and as a co-parent with your wife, including buying all the books with black princesses in them. Why is that important, the books?
Because books are definitive. Once something is in a book, it almost becomes universally accepted as the rule and the law. So if the book says this person is pretty, then this is what pretty is. If the book says this person is smart, this is what smart is. And if you're never seeing yourself in pretty and smart in all the literature you consume, maybe you might question, am I pretty or am I smart, amongst other things. And I will say that part hasn't been as difficult. Her library is crazy. She has all of the classics. She has a lot of new stuff. He has actually some, this is to my parents out here, especially new ones. There's a lot of terrible children's books. Like, read the first couple of pages before you pick those books up. Because one thing, everyone already feels like they can write a book, which is cool. You should take a shot at it. But everybody think they can write a children's books. And there's like books with no lessons, with weird plots, with, this is some very, very terrible children's books out there. We're not hard enough on children's book authors. We should be more critical. They should get like Times reviews.
Oh my God, that's great. Yeah, there should be some really brutal reality show like a Shark Tank where you come out and pitch your children's book idea and just some British asshole destroys you.
Right, and then you get like stoned if it's bad. They should like stone you.
Wow, that got dark really quick, D.
Because you're trying to ruin children.
I understand, but the intention. I also would stone the illustrators because have you ever? Sometimes you'll read a children's book and you'll be like, not only how did this story get published, who drew this? Who? Where are they? Are they? Can they see? Horrible. I'm an artist, so I get a little snobby about the drawing, especially.
As you should.
I wouldn't do it myself, and I'm pretty good. So who are you? There's no pupils. Sorry. So towards the end of your book, you write something I just want you to kind of unpack however you want, but you say that being a black man in America is exhausting. We whites hear that a lot. We don't know what it means. What does it mean for you?
So one, I'm a university professor, and I literally get questioned every semester about my role, right? Like, oh, wait, you're the teacher? So that,
on campus.
On campus. This happens. That spills over to the comments and the way I react to certain papers I grade. I'm questioned. And when they look me up, sometimes they're like, he's done his work. But then, when they don't, then it's almost like I have to have extra conversations that I kind of shouldn't have to have. Like if I was,
Can you give me an example? Can you give me an example?
Kid writes a paper and his paper is terrible. And I tell him it's terrible in the nicest way possible. He might question it and try to explain certain things, leading me to say, well, you didn't do that in the paper, and this made no sense, and that made no sense. And then, I ran this through this app, turnedin.com. So you stole this section. This isn't even you, and you have to, and these are conversations that you shouldn't have to have. And I'm not even going to mention like my experiences with police, well, I guess I am, with police officers or with stores, going into the stores and not getting service or not getting what I need, or seeing the person in front of me swipe. And when it's time for me to swipe, I need 17 different forms of ID. And I have to like, it just becomes like a whole production and things like that. I mean, you get used to it, but then when you're rushing, you get frustrated. Or
when you've had anything happen in your day, I'm guessing. I mean, I can relate. Anybody can relate to kind of what you're saying. Like, not today. Please, not today.
Yeah, not today. Not today. Not today. Like when you're pulled over, Baltimore's a weird city. It's wild. It's really segregated.
Yeah.
If you go in certain neighborhoods and they're not used to seeing you, or if you go in certain neighborhoods with a certain kind of car, then, even if they just want to stop you I've been stopped by police officers who said the dumbest shit. How many horses are there? How the fuck do I know? Like, don't you Google it? Like, you think I ride around like, oh yeah, there's 752 horses in here. You want to know the torque? Like, I don't know that shit. Like,
asking you questions about your engine.
Yeah, they will pull you over and ask you shit about the car, like pop quiz you on a car and shit. Like what is the difference between the 2017 and the 2019? What? You know what I mean? Like,
I don't.
Like the dumbest shit. And it literally is somebody 2 miles away getting shot at, and you're stopping me because your wife's thinking about buying an SUV.
I will say that's horrible. That is horrible. And the only way I can relate is I got pulled over not too long ago. I drive a Chevy Volt, electric hybrid. And the cop said, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" And I was like, "No." And he goes, "Because you're a pussy." And I was like, what the fuck? What kind of a thing? But then, recognized that we had similar friends and he let me go. But that's a joke. And I don't use that word, but that's a thing a cop would say. It's a thing a cop would say. And it's a white thing also. So sorry for trying to.
That's what they do. That's what they do. So and that kind of stuff is, it's exhausting because that, and then we're in Baltimore. So, people seeing we own this city. We own this city is 100% true stories. There's only 2 made up characters, but everyone else is like, these are real people. These are real stories, even down to the people from the street, all the way up to the politicians, all real.
I didn't even know about that show until I read, I was preparing to meet, to interview you and get your book. And you wrote episode 3 of the show. It is a huge monster show now. And I guess it's kind of new. I'm not sure when it came out, but I'm so excited to watch it now, having gotten to talk to you. But let me just ask you one more kind of thing along those lines and say what you want to say. And you've written obviously about this, but do you have nuanced views of police officers, law enforcement in general, in this country, in your experience? Or do you feel comfortable and talking about it in a more less complex, more succinct way about the problems? Do you think it's worth like talking about the larger issue, or do you just easily dismiss and say, as my friend Dr. Jason Johnson says, abolish them? It's not working.
Yeah, my stance is a little different for a number of reasons. And I got big respect for Dr. Jason Johnson. I think he's at Morgan State in Baltimore.
That's right, he is, yeah.
And so while I agree with him.
And I might have just misrepresented, I gave a more succinct, but he's, go ahead.
So he's on the right side of history because yes, it isn't working. However, like me, he's a big guy who can kind of like, if he has a problem, he can kind of take it into his own hands. I'm never calling the police in my life for anything unless I need like an insurance. If my insurance company is saying, hey, we need a police report where you listed the items you stole, is the only way I'm going to call him. If you pull a gun out on me and if I'm not going to try to get you myself, I'm just going to let it go and ask someone's grandma to pray for me. And it's just going to be that. Like, I don't expect a police officer to like solve crimes and things like that. However, that is my opinion. So I'm from East Baltimore. I'm in and out of projects. I'm in these places, and some of those grandmoms, they rely on police officers to clear their corner because a bullet came through her window, or to get the people to stop selling drugs in front of their house. And their perspective is, yeah, they might have their views on negative things that police officers have done. However, they also see the good that they have brought to those individual groups of people. So I don't try to like put my woke or my own backstory as like the way I think everybody should know how they feel.
Right.
We know historically they don't work. One of the things I think about a lot is disarming them. I don't think we have enough conversations about how powerful it would be if we disarm police officers or disarm the segment of officers who responded like traffic stops and stuff like that. Because then, you know, you're not killing unarmed people. There's not a lot of stories. There's not a lot of stories in the media floating around about, we pulled him over and he pulled out a gun and started shooting as soon as we asked for his license. Like that's like a maybe, I don't know the number. Don't quote me on this, but I feel like it could be like 1 in 500 or something. Like it doesn't really happen. So why are you running up on cars with your weapons drawn if this isn't something that normally happens? That can be a part of the conversation. But
well,
no,
all they have to do is I can tell you my answer to that. Just a media analysis is and political analysis. It only has to happen one time. And then your narrative is formulated into fucking policy. If one undocumented person kills a beautiful young girl who was on vacation with her family, it is a horrific story, and it is not a thing that you make a law about. So if one cop gets shot, it is a horrific thing. It's not a thing that you need to put more people in danger. That's the way I see it. But that's the conversation that convinces people getting back to the point about being afraid and then obviously taking control and having power. That's clearly what that's about, I think.
Absolutely.
Last question, I guess. I mean, I'm going to talk to you forever, but I just wanted to get your perspective. I was having a conversation with someone recently. You've written a lot about this and obviously the new show. Given your experience in the black market, drug markets in Baltimore growing up, and what you see now, and I'm sure I'm plugged in with just being now a respected elder in your community too. How much has the trade itself changed? How much has the organization changed? How much has selling drugs on the black market changed from when you grew up and it was turf wars and done literally outside to now with all of the apps and ways to communicate and ways to hide? I don't know. I don't know enough about it. But my understanding is that it's really evolved and adapted with technology and with culture and with law enforcement strategy.
Yeah, it's definitely changed a lot. So many people are getting locked up off of Instagram. So many people are hustling off of their social media through their own little codes that their clients understand. I knew it was different, but the first time I knew it was different is when I saw the kid selling drugs to the drug addict. And I was sitting on the block and I was having a drink and it was like a summer day. And I remember the addict telling the guy who sold him the drugs, if you keep rushing me and you keep playing with me, I'm not going to give you my pills. So it wasn't like, the kid was selling heroin. However, he was relying on the Percocets from the addict. And normally the addict is the person who has to be subservient and play by a certain set of rules. But the addict had you calm your little ass down or you're not going to get these pills. And I'm like, wow, like back in my day.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm asking. That's what I'm asking.
Back in my day, he would have got a foot in his ass. But no, so, but the way kids are using the oxys and the Percocets and, all of the big pharma treats has definitely made a change to the market on top of the amount of how police officers could just sit around and look at social media. It's crazy. And with all of this stuff happening in Baltimore, the murder rate, the clearance for the homicides is still extremely low. But, I guess it just falls on their inability to decode these complex Instagram posts.
Yeah. Well, they're always a step ahead. I mean, whoever of law enforcement, that's just the nature of it, I suppose. All right, man. Well, I've had you here for too long. I really appreciate it. I really, really am enjoying this book. And I just keep coming back to us being the same age and thinking about how different your life has been than mine, but how excited I am to become familiar with your work and hope that you just keep doing it and really hope that it gets recognized by the people who need to, I think, learn from it. It's going to really change lives. I'm sure of it. It's already affected me.
Thank you, and looking forward to hearing this, and would love to come back. We connected now. I'll shoot you my info.
Cool.
I would love to come back.
Thank you so much, T. Really great. All right. Sound like I said T. Did I say T? D. Watkins, everybody. Wow. How do you like that? Go get the book, Black Boy Smile. I promise it's a great summer read. It really is. I don't know if you like memoirs. I once got made fun of for saying memoir. I think I said that earlier. It's a great memoir. And D. Watkins, a great guy. We've been going back and forth, and I'm watching We Own This City. So good. I really hope that you like that, and I hope that you will tweet him. That would mean, obviously, a lot to me, and I'm sure to him as well. All right, now it's time to talk with Bill Boyle. Bill B in D.C. had an awesome conversation with him about the January 6 hearings that we are going to do a live hangout and watch party for, as well as the latest from Russia's invasion into Ukraine. But, I've got to tell you about this. For your company, for their next hire, you want them to have great problem-solving skills, right? You want the next person you hire to think like an entrepreneur. Well, I've got the thing you need help with. How to find them. It's easy. You need Indeed, ladies and gentlemen. Indeed.com is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. And instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed's a powerful hiring partner that can help you do it all. So find great talent faster through time-saving tools like Indeed Instant Match assessments and virtual interviews. With Instant Match, over 80% of employers get quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job. You hear me? So as soon as you sponsor a job, you're going to get great candidates, according to Indeed US. One of the things I love about Indeed, it makes hiring all in one place. And I've got listeners, several that have reached out to me and said Indeed has worked for them and it could work for you. So save yourself the headaches. No downloads, plugins, or purchases. You do it all in one place with Indeed.com. After using their virtual interviewers, most employers said it saved them days of hiring time. Indeed is the only job site where you only pay for applications that meet your must-have requirements. Join more than 3 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And if you sign up for Indeed right now, you get a $75 credit toward your first sponsored job, plus earn up to $500 in sponsored job credits with Indeed's virtual interviews. Visit Indeed.com/standup to learn more. Claim your credits at Indeed.com/standup. Indeed.com/standup. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. There you go. You can thank me later as well for this conversation with Bill Boyle. Bill Boyle's bio on Twitter at BillBNDC says, peaceable but earnest. Dude/that dude. Bill grew up in New Jersey. He lives in D.C. where he owns parking garages. He tries to keep a lot of that business private. A lot of people think he's in the CIA. He is not. I've hung out with Bill several times. He's become a close personal friend and confidant of mine, and someone whose perspective I like to get on pretty much everything from personal to politics. He's a great guy. He's a smart guy. He comes off a little pugnacious, which is what I love most about him. And I hope you will enjoy our conversation previewing the January 6 hearings and more. And for this interview, I went from the phone to Bill's local recording, what he recorded on his side of it and sent to me. And which one do you like better? He was dropping some of the end of his sentences. You couldn't hear the words on the phone connection, so I switched over. But which do you prefer? I think I'm just going to buy and send Bill a mic and hook up. He's on the show so often, I want him to sound perfect. But here it is. Okay, so here is the Washington Post setting us up, writing under the headline, January 6th committee set to make its case public with primetime hearings. Sessions this month mark the culmination of a year-long investigation. The insider testimony and new video footage is expected. They write, almost a year after the formation of the House Select Committee investigating the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol, lawmakers are set to take their case public. On Thursday night, the chairman and vice chairwoman will launch a series of televised interviews featuring a combination of live witnesses, pre-taped interviews with figures that include Trump family members, and previously unseen video footage. The hearings mark the culmination of an inquiry that has involved more than 1,000 interviews and reviews of more than 125,000 records. Taken together, the work represents the most comprehensive record yet of the deadly assault, and which panel members have come to believe stands out as only the most visible evidence of a broader plot to undermine American democracy, one that emanated from the White House. Joining us now is our friend Bill B. in D.C. Bill Boyle, always great at analyzing these things, and obviously all kind of insider information with all his pals down there in D.C. about how you think this is going to shake out starting Thursday night. Bill, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So are people talking about this? Are you thinking about this?
People are thinking about it, but I got to tell you, I don't hear a lot of people talking about it. I mean, in D.C., the idea is everyone knows they did it. And by I mean knows they did it, everyone accepts that it was an attempt to overthrow the government. You don't run into very many people who say, well, it wasn't that big of a deal. Because we could hear it from our houses. You know, we could see the lunatic fascists pouring out of the metro stations. You know, we could see the cops all pouring downtown from every police station, dragging on their riot gear. So to people here, it's the fall of Saigon already. It's the Reichstag fire. It already happened, you know, and it's our fact. And so weirdly in Washington, D.C., there's only instrumental interest in the sense that people are interested, you know, the people I talk to are interested in seeing if something really will come of it.
So there are, I mean, of course, the DC audience is going to be different, but there are different audiences. I think it's interesting that it's on a Thursday night and it's at 8:00 p.m. I guess. I mean, it's like prime time. And one of the questions is, you know, will people watch? Will it be riveting? I read today that Democrats hired a former television network, you know, producer to kind of produce it like a TV show, which I think is smart.
Yep.
So who are the audiences and will it matter? I guess that's the really big question.
I mean, I think the audience is the, you know, somewhat interested person. That guy who, you know, doesn't like Trump, but maybe voted for him in 2016. But now he's kind of over it. And, you know, there are a lot of people, I think, that out there that were not particularly on the side of the Democrats, but still reacted quite strongly to what happened on January 6th. I think there are a lot of people like that. I mean, I think you can measure that by, you know, when you sit in your little town bar or go home to the town you came from, you hear a lot less and you see a lot less of the overt Trump support that was there before that January.
Right.
So I do think they're aiming at those people, and, you know, they're hiring, the guy they hired is a former producer from Nightline. So you really got somebody who knows how to tell a story in a dramatic way that you're not aiming for, you know, the Barstool sports guys. You're aiming for more serious people who vote. And I think it's smart. I think it's smart that they're not just doing one night. It's going to build up over time. And I think that what they have to do is tell a really coherent story that connects the people to the crime that occurred or the series of crimes that occurred. Because, you know, in normal times, everyone involved would already be in jail.
Right. In normal times.
That has not happened because we're sort of locked up in this partisan era where a lot of people don't really want to admit to themselves what happened. And as I described how DC is, where it's an accepted fact of their life, you know, when you go out to the sticks, you run into a lot of people who kind of do the like, well, was it really that bad? And, you know, it wasn't that huge of a deal. And that's the thing that they need to show. And, you know, there's a series of things. They have to kind of follow a series of steps in order to get people indicted. And that is, you know, the ultimate point of this is to put the DOJ in a situation where everyone can say they're 100% justified to indict people.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. According to Jennifer Rubin, who writes in today's Washington Post again, the committee has two audiences. The most critical is the public, which you mentioned, at large, and then you broke them down. But she writes, rational Americans not already determined to exonerate Trump should be convinced of his intimate involvement in the coup, of the seriousness of his actions and the need for prosecution. Ideally, there should be a groundswell of support for prosecution. The evidence, she writes, must be so compelling that Republicans' ongoing efforts to perpetuate the big lie and rationalize or downplay the insurrection make them look foolish, dishonest, and malicious. Perhaps that will encourage the media to stop treating Trump enablers as normal politicians and confront them at every opportunity about their betrayal of the country. And then she writes, Bill, as you just said, the second audience is the Justice Department. Its attorneys must be convinced by the facts presented that failure to prosecute is unthinkable.
That's right. And you know, the way you get to that is you have to make clear in these hearings what they actually planned and why what they planned is so heinous. You have to make it clear who planned it, who was involved. You have to make it clear who paid for it, right? Because money was spent. And you have to explain things like, why was Pence's chief of staff going to the Secret Service and saying the vice president is under threat? Under threat from who? He's surrounded by the Secret Service. There was basically a statement made there in an oblique way that I don't trust the vice president's Secret Service staff, right? You also have things like they need to show who of the rioters that were on Capitol Hill that day were talking to who in the White House, right? I mean, they need to show those sorts of things where the average person can go, oh, shit, and I'm just going to say hypothetical that just between me, you, and the 75 million people that listen to your podcast, I think there was certainly a connection between Scavino and or Meadows with guys like Enrique Tarrio and the Proud Boys and similar groups. And
the DOJ just 2 days ago, news broke that Department of Justice is not indicting Meadows or Scavino with contempt of Congress charges. That's different from what you're talking about, but still.
That's different because that was not indicting them for contempt of Congress. They actually had a bad but hard to argue or hard to fight legal argument, whereas Navarro had none. So that don't read into that lack of an indictment there. It tells you that Merrick Garland is going to be careful about who he indicts. It doesn't tell you anything about what he will do if he's presented with really good evidence that there was collusion between the Proud Boys and the 3% militias and some staff in the White House.
Margaret Hartman at the New York Magazine's Intelligencer writes the wildest revelations from January 6th committee. She says they are Ginny Thomas repeatedly urging the White House to overturn the election, Don Jr. sharing a plan for declaring Dad the winner while votes were still being counted, Sean Hannity literally took orders from the White House with the transcript of the text. Trump was ready to seize voting machines. And finally, Trump said maybe Pence should be hanged. Bill, you want to pick any of those or add any?
I'll put down a marker right here. By the time these hearings are over, those will seem like lesser revelations.
You think there's going to be big blockbuster revelations?
If I had to guess, they don't go to the degree they're going to. Raskin and Cheney are quite serious people who don't agree on almost anything. And they are in lockstep charging towards some pretty big stuff that's putting both of their entire professional career at risk for it. I don't think people like that do that sort of thing unless they have the goods. And I think that what they have to show, and maybe it's not legally provable, right? But they have to show on the level of common sense that there was a conspiracy to steal the presidency. And I think that they need to show it in a way that makes it impossible for anyone in the middle to deny. The Trump people, who gives a shit, the really crazies, you're never going to convince them. But they need to put this down. They just put this marker down that there was a coup attempt. Having been here and watched it from the streets, it looked exactly like a coup attempt. And I have no doubt that if they can get to all the evidence they're going to need, they will be able to show it.
I'm still not convinced that they will be able to show it, but I feel like the burden of proof should be on, and I'm sure we'll hear a good bit about it. President Trump and others in the administration doing nothing to prevent it from continuing.
Well, so we already know that he did more than that in a malign way. It was the temporary Secretary of Defense that he brought in made a statement that Trump wanted 10,000 men in the military in downtown D.C. And he didn't do it because, to quote him, he did not want to be party to a coup. Right? I mean, we hear if you collect all the bits and pieces, it's obvious what Trump wanted to do. He didn't give a shit about the rules or the law or anything else. He wanted to stay in the White House, and that was it. And his only problem was that he couldn't get the levers of power to move in the direction he wanted them to, for various reasons, legal and bureaucratic and whatever. And I think to me, it's like such an obvious thing. And really all we're down to now is whether we can get our political culture and media to accept that fact as fact.
Right.
And then
important
do something
point.
about it.
Very important point.
Yeah, I mean, this is not, by the way, this is not some crazy thing that never happens in any society. I've bored you before. We're talking about, France between the 1850s and, basically, France still almost had a coup in 1962, right? Like in the modern era. We're in that sort of stage of politics in this country, and these things happen in democracies that have contested political culture. And we certainly have incredibly contested political culture. It would help it enormously if we could draw the very deep line around this sort of behavior so it doesn't happen again. So that, this is not just Trump's out and who cares and let him go and it's never going to happen again. As you've said before yourself, an unsuccessful coup is just practice for the successful one. And we have to do this. And I think that's the aim of this. I think that's the aim of this entire exercise.
Another point.
I think go ahead.
Well, another point is that we remember the Mueller report. And I think, Jennifer Rubin says we need to do the opposite in the January 6th hearings. One of my concerns is, while Benny Thompson may be very qualified to be the chairman, he might be super smart. I find him to be a bit bumbling, and I think communication matters. And as you mentioned, Raskin and Cheney and most of the rest of them are just so much more charismatic. And he, so Benny Thompson reminds me a little bit of old Robert Mueller, smart, credible, but maybe not the best person on the mic. Maybe I am the only one who notices such things. Not the only one, but being someone who pays attention to communication, it's like I'd take Jim Jordan over Benny Thompson. I mean, the guy's he's a complete asshole, but he doesn't. And under questioning, I don't think he's great. But, when he's running the show, he's just, I'm not saying he has to be an asshole. I'm just worried about the performances of some of the people on the hearings, on the panel, rather. Kinzinger, most of them seem great, obviously. But
yeah, I think that the reason that they have the Nightline producer in there is for that purpose.
To cut Benny Thompson's mic?
Well, when you've got a bunch of congressmen sitting in a hearing room and they're sort of talking about how they're going to run a public hearing, that ends up being a political negotiation about who gets enough face time. And, it's about sort of levels of power and desire to be on camera and all that stuff.
I think when people criticize, Democrats for not acting more like Republicans, I always think that's not fair for the most part. But in this case, the idea that Democrats are treating it like a TV show is exactly what Republicans did for exactly what Trump has always done. Everything's a reality show. Fine. This is our reality show. 8 o'clock Thursday night. See you there.
Well, and if this is the medium that we have that really lends itself to, this sort of, storytelling and narrative shaping as a way to do politics, you either play that game or you're out of politics. Right. And I think it's a really good thing because what it does is with the Nightline producer there, at least in theory, we'll see how it plays out. But at least in theory, then the main point becomes, you've got a referee to basically say, Representative Thompson, I love you. But the storyline is not helped by the 7.5-minute speech you're going to give at the beginning of this.
Right.
You need to get down to 4 sentences, say exactly what you mean, and then we'll montage to the rioting pictures.
Right. The
right.
video
and you have a
elements
professional.
There's going to be some slick editing video elements that should tell a straightforward story to even someone who did not know this event ever occurred.
Yes. Yeah.
That
is what you're aiming for. And, it's going to be interesting because I really think Democrats might surprise everybody here.
Well, I hope you're right.
Yeah, I hate to say that because I'm probably jinxing the entire world. But I could see this being a really huge moment But again, you always get back, or I always get back to that thing, like maybe it just doesn't matter at this point. Right? We could easily be in one of those sort of political interregnums where, the other things that are not related to this have to work themselves out first. But I could easily see, if you could imagine the situation we're in, if it becomes clear that they can prove that Trump helped finance and direct, say, a threat to Pence to get him out of the White House, to get him out of the House building, right? Or if he figured out ways to help the Proud Boys get into that building.
Right.
Right? I mean, what you're looking for is something like that, or 3 or 4 things, hopefully, like that, where it's just an absolute chip shot to make a case, where it makes it impossible not to make a case. Then you're just really in derelict of your duty for Merrick Garland. I'm not a critic of Garland. I think he's very, very careful. We need to get him to a point where he doesn't have any choice about it.
Right. That's the big, I think that's the big and most important point that I've heard being made. Finally on this, and I want to ask you about Ukraine. The House's January 6th committee, I'm reading now Axios, has split behind the scenes over what actions to take after the public hearings. Some members want big changes on voting rights and even to abolish the Electoral College, while others are resisting proposals to overhaul the U.S. election system. And so, obviously Liz Cheney is against that, but and it would be really hard to get unanimous agreement on any of these legislative recommendations in their final report after the hearing. But apparently in multiple conversations among committee members, Jamie Raskin has argued that the Electoral College should be abolished and that if presidents were elected by popular vote, this would protect future presidential elections against the subversion that Trump and his allies tried to pull off in 2020. So it's an interesting way to slip in a long wanted reform that Democrats have wanted to get rid of the Electoral College, which would have changed the trajectory of the last 30 years on planet Earth.
Yeah, and I mean, think about it this way. In the 1970s, if you said to the Democrats, let's get rid of the Electoral College, they would have told you to pound sand because it benefited Democrats in the opposite direction back then. I think that's what they're doing right now is performing for their bases. Raskin's a smart guy. He knows the votes are not there to change the Electoral College. He knows it's not happening. But you got to say it because that is ultimately what Democrats would love to do. Liz Cheney, for her part, she's trying to win an election in Wyoming. And if she says to her constituents in Wyoming, yeah, we're going to get rid of the Electoral College thing, so forget about ever seeing another presidential candidate here ever again. Right? I mean, it doesn't, the politics of it aren't going anywhere. That's not going to change. I would love to wave a magic wand to get rid of it, but that's not what's going to happen.
And a state like Wyoming is the reason why we should get rid of the Electoral College, because there's 8 people there.
But people in Wyoming understand clearly that it gives them enhanced political power as a small state.
Sure.
So, you're that stuff, to me, that whole sort of trend in media reporting right now is the media, it's a bit of both sides reporting, right? The committee of a couple of very hardcore Republicans and a bunch of really liberal Democrats working together, killing it in a lot of ways on getting all this done. But you got to find something to disagree with about so that you can say, oh, but also there's this other drama.
Yeah.
And none of it really means jack shit. And Liz Cheney and Jamie Raskin both knew each other's positions about both those situations 10 years ago.
So very well said. Axios writes, Cheney thinks the committee would burn its credibility if it pushes for radical changes like abolishing the Electoral College, according to a source with direct knowledge. Also, Liz Cheney has joked to her colleagues on the committee that there's no way the single at-large representative for the tiny state of Wyoming would support abolishing the Electoral College, according to another source with direct knowledge of the internal committee deliberations. Exactly what we were just speculating now is sourced to her.
Yeah, she's not stupid, and voters in Wisconsin aren't stupid, even if they piss us off a lot. And the bottom line is that what she is talking about...
No offense, Phil. Go ahead, Bill.
Right. Do you know what she is talking about? She is talking about changing the Insurrection Act to make it much more difficult for the president to access emergency powers. And she's talking about changing I forget the name of the law, but the ministerial role that the vice president has in counting electors. She wants to strengthen that law so that there's no ambiguity about how that works. Those are completely laudable and good things to do that are actually achievable right now. And that's what we should be doing right now. Democrats win so much they can get rid of the Electoral College. Sounds great to me, but that's not in the cards for this term.
Right. Okay, so I finally wanted to ask you about what's going on in Ukraine, Russia's invasion. I'm not sure where we're at, but obviously started at the end of February. And it seems, and I'm not paying very close attention, which is why I have you to kind of clear it up. You pay very close attention, talk to a lot of people, read a tremendous amount on what's happening and have all the sources to follow it at your fingertips. So it seems like the tide might be turning a little bit towards Russia. In the Donbass, they shot missiles into Kiev. And then, of course, you had this other development about the U.S. sending missiles that could reach Russia. And there was controversy about that because at first the president Biden said we weren't going to do that. Next thing you know, he's writing an op-ed as to why we are doing that. So any thoughts on any of that? And then tell me what I don't know.
Let me start at the back first and go forward. If I miss anything, just scream at me. But Number one, the missiles. When the U.S. was being ambiguous about the missiles to the Ukraine, we were already training Ukrainians on how to use them. So the thing that reporters have to get around their heads around is that, believe it or not, when you're in a war, you don't actually go to the media to do everything you're going to do so that your enemy knows ahead of time. Right? And there's a very strange vibe here that I run into. And it's this sort of like, no one thinks that the administration can possibly be trying to misdirect the Russians. It doesn't even occur to them that that's a possibility. And of course, if you're going to misdirect the Russians, how do you do it? By saying something to the media that's going to be ambiguous or hard to parse, right? And another way that you help your cause, if say you want to lower the chance of escalation, right? It's a really good idea to leak a rumor to the media and let it get out there and let the Russians react to. By the way, the Russians reacted initially to the U.S. putting, our system that shoots 350 miles, right? Well, once the Russians reacted to that and said that would be escalatory, we gave the Ukrainians missiles that go like 75. And that actually, when the Russians reject that and react to that, it's kind of small beans at that point, right? You bluff back and forth endlessly in a situation like this when you're trying to do, information management and propaganda management during a war. And the media in the U.S. acts as if like every single thing has to be a story, and it's got to be a story today. And they don't have a lot of self-reflection on whether they're being used or whether they are overreacting or whether they just don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Right. They don't. Yes.
Yeah. And it's really kind of nuts. I mean, I watch this stuff and roll my eyes because I'm like, guys, like we just gave the Ukrainians, it's 102 days. And I think that the amount of aid given to Ukraine probably approaches $700 billion. They are getting
from the U.S. alone. I mean, they're getting it from
U.S. is 40 on the one big tranche, and I would bet you another 10 or 15, and then you throw in everybody else. And like for instance, the Ukrainians are getting main battle tanks from the Germans, the Spanish, and other people. Remember, we wouldn't send those airplanes in, those MiG-29s. We wouldn't take them.
Yeah.
What they were apparently doing was just delivering so many parts from MiG-29s to the Ukraine that they were able to rebuild a bunch of planes in the country.
Really?
Yes. Which, again, is something you're not going to read in the paper. But that's open source stuff. You can find that. So, in effect, we did the same thing without tying the U.S. government into the story about escalation that the Russians were trying to take advantage of.
Right. What about the momentum?
The momentum thing is fucking hilarious. And you're not the only one to say this. I recently had
I just read a few headlines. I really, my opinion on it is, but it is based on a few headlines. So
no, I mean, but I'm saying, talking to people who I think should know better. I have conversations, and there's this idea that somehow Russia can just out of its ass create a new army, right? And it's a World War II derived thing where everyone thinks that the Russians won World War II on their own. If they did not have about 75,000 American trucks and armor and everything else and bullets, they probably would have been fought to a standstill by the Germans. Russia's not magic. It's not fucking magic. It's a country with a set demography, a set industrial base, a set ability to produce the things you need to fight war, and its economy is getting crunched like a tin can. There's no Deus Ex Machina coming down to suddenly make Vladimir Putin a genius. He still has 200,000 men, or a lot less at this point, trying to invade a country of 44 million. So what you're seeing right now is the Russians have concentrated all of their combat power in less than 100 kilometers. Okay, on a front that's more like 1,000 kilometers. Okay, they're putting everything they have in one little place to try to win, to snip off one little cauldron and say, we won. The Ukrainians are attriting them down, and they're now launching offensives on a sort of low to medium scale around the country, near Hurston, obviously near Kharkiv, etc. What Ukraine is doing is learning how to launch offensives. They've never done it before. What they're doing is being very parsimonious with the lives of their army, because they know that as long as they maintain a favorable casualty rate, they lose 100 guys for every 300 Russia loses. Then over time, the Russians just run out of men, and the Ukrainians are going to walk back into their lost terrain. But they're going to build up their capacity. But and their big deficits are artillery. The Russians have tons of artillery, but the Russian army artillery there's a lot of it. It's big, but it's dumb. They don't have the precision, shooting technology that we are giving the Ukrainians in droves. Those missile systems. Those missile systems, their real power is not they can shoot far. Their power is that they can shoot within 10 feet of what they're aiming at.
Right.
And so what we're looking at is like the qualitative differences in the Ukrainian army. Russia had more heavy army, much more equipped army, and initially it had more men that could be put onto the battlefield. All those are slowly tipping. Time is on Ukraine's side, and Ukraine is not losing. I mean, Severodonetsk is the city the Russians are trying to take, that is the farthest east in unoccupied territory right now. Last week, the Ukrainians pretended to retreat from the entire city. The Russians came in, and over 3 days, the Ukrainians poured back in and absolutely beat the crap out of 4 or 5 Russian battalion tactical groups, and now they're retreating out of that city again, letting Russia basically bomb the same crap that it bombed 10 times before.
Yeah, let me read just a couple of headlines, which are different kind of the headlines I read, I mentioned. Al Jazeera reporting, Russia suffering huge casualties as troops retreat. Russia's UN envoy storms out of Ukraine meeting over European statement. That's not as important as this is 6 hours ago, we're talking on Monday afternoon, another Russian general killed by Ukrainian forces. Russian general was killed during a battle in Ukraine's eastern Donbass while he was actually personally leading the attack. What do you know about Roman Kutuzov?
Kutuzov, which is, I love that name because the general that beat Napoleon in Russia at the end of the Napoleonic Wars was a Kutuzov.
I knew that.
And
of course.
So that name has, that's the equivalent of like, I don't know, what would be an American one? Von Steuben or some big American. You drive over a bridge named Kosciuszko. That's this kind of guy this is. It's interesting that he got killed there because the Ukrainians have shown such an excellent ability to kill these guys that the Russians stopped going to the front. The Russian, major generals did. The reason that guy was there was almost certainly because he couldn't get the offensive going unless he personally went to push people.
Right.
And that's an excellent example of, a real larger picture thing that's happening, that the Russian senior staff is trying to avoid getting too close to the line because they assume they're going to get killed. And now one of them did, and he got killed, which means that for the next couple of weeks, all these, senior colonels and major generals are going to stay back 15, 20 miles, which again makes it harder for them to motivate and drive their men. So it's a good little, like an anecdotal story that underlines a big strategic reality, which is that the Russian army doesn't, they're desperate to get things moving. And, something that's interesting that I noticed is that Russian tank losses are down by about a third. Well, then you would think, oh, the Ukrainians are not killing Russian tanks. But what's actually happening is the Russians can't push their tanks forward because they know they're going to get destroyed. So they're holding them back because they're afraid to use them. Now, an army that is designed around tank exploitation in the offense that feels like it can't use its tanks is an army that's not going anywhere.
Tanks.
Yeah.
What year is it?
Oh, tanks are, they're going to be with us for a while. They're going to change a lot, but yeah.
If I was in any military and they're like, hey, Pete, you're going to be on a tank crew, I'd be like, I'm good. I don't think I want to do that. I saw the movie Fury. No, thank you.
Well,
I wouldn't want to do it then. I certainly don't want to do it now when there's airplanes and missiles.
Imagine Fury, exactly, where any farm boy with a javelin can kill you from 2 miles away.
Exactly. And then I'm on fire and I have to shoot myself. Did you see that scene?
Yes, definitely.
The worst thing I think I've ever seen, more replayed in my head than anything, and I'm sorry for reminding people of it.
Oh, it's awful. Yeah, I mean, it's a real bad way to die. And,
real bad way to die. But listen, that's why Brad Pitt's in the movie, to make us feel a little better.
There you go. So
good luck.
That, by the way, is why you saw so many abandoned Russian tanks. Once these guys figured out, the smart guys abandoned their tanks. Once they saw the tank in front of them stew up from a missile where they didn't even hear it coming, and all of a sudden the tank turret is doing a moonshot for the guy in front of you. You get the hell out of the tank and you run.
Yeah, and there's no cowardice there. That's just why are we here on these tanks?
Yeah, there's 4 feet of mud in the field on either side of you. You can't get off the road. You can't drive away. You're the biggest. You're this big hot target on a cool spring night in Ukraine. You get the fuck away from that thing unless you're out of your mind.
So just last question on it. I guess I think you kind of answered it, but the momentum narrative. Do you think here on day 102, what should it be, or what's more, gathering all the sources that you can, hearing everything that you do?
If Ukraine manages to teach itself and be taught, because obviously we're helping them, if they manage to be able to put together even some limited offensives, I think the Russians are going to be very likely to hold on to what they had before the war started.
Wow. I mean, the idea, just in case anybody missed it, the idea that there ever would have been Ukrainian offensives was not one that a lot of people had in their mind at the beginning of this. That they would be going on the offense, invading in Russia, as they have in some places, much less instead of defending their own home.
We're a ways away from that, but it is not completely out of the realm of possibility.
Right. Crazy.
Yeah. I certainly didn't guess it. So.
Yeah. All right. Anything else?
That's it, buddy. That's it. I'm going to go back to my... go to see Sigur Rós in D.C. tonight and try not to get people sick.
Who's this? You're going to see a band?
A band called Sigur Rós, Icelandic band. Highly recommend them. They're you've seen them in many car commercials in the background music. So.
Oh, wow. Okay. Who are you going with?
I'm taking the boy and the wife.
Awesome. And how are you feeling? You're coughing a little bit. You mentioned you're still a little... You have some weird... you got diagnosed with COVID 3 weeks ago?
I did. And I only really had about 3 bad days, but I'm in that phase where my immune system is still haywire. So my sinuses and my throat are just like raw all the time. I'm very much I no longer have COVID at all, but it takes a while for your system to kind of reset itself.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. Cannot wait. On one of
it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. No cigars for me until this is all over. So.
Oh, God. I had enough for you this past weekend, so...
Yes, excellent. Good.
All right, but thank you very, very much. I greatly appreciate your knowledge and sharing it with us.
Thanks, brother.
As always.
Be well.
All right, bye.
Bye.
All right, there he goes, Bill Boyle. Bill Boyle, what did you think of the phone connection? Was that bothering you? What did you think of the audio? Let me know what you think. StandUpWithPete@gmail.com for that and everything else. And StandUpWithPete.com. Sign up now to support the show. Be a member of our community where you will never be alone because the Discord chat is always there 24/7. We hang out on Thursday nights. This week we will do a watch party of those January 6th hearings, which we just talked about. Should be fascinating, or I hope. And thank you, of course, to D. Watkins. And that was just an awesome, awesome interview. Go get his book, Black Boy Smile, as well as a final thank you to Indeed.com. Indeed.com/standupwithPete. Or rather, Indeed.com/standup is the link, by the way. Sorry. And go check them out. Go click on that link. Thank you most of all to all of those of you who subscribe with a paid subscription every single month. I cannot do it without you. The podcast is free. Tell your friends to subscribe to the podcast and then to subscribe for a paid subscription as well. Thank you to great John Carroll. You should go buy his song right now. It's $3. Go to johncarroll.org right now and buy this song. You gotta stand up. Thank you, John. Be the change you want to see. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Off of your fence, even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense and you stand up, stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town, just stand up, stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down, boy, you better stand up, stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up, they had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Where the money all went, it'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. Alright, we got to speak up, we got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it than now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up.